So I'm ultimately a perfect being.
So it was during my first semester at university, and I joined the philosophy club. It was the first meeting, and so we spent it talking about what we wanted to discuss in future meetings, like conspiracies, topics, and of course there was an introduction section where I was able to tell everybody how I'm a psychic medium and I'm a practicing pagan, stuff like that. I'm really glad because I was brand new to the school and I was able to make a ton of friends during that meeting. So at the end, it was kind of a little social hour time where we were all standing around and just talking. I was in a circle talking with some people, and there was this one guy standing off to the side right next to me. We'll call him Craig. And he was doing that thing where you try to look busy by literally just tapping your phone screen even though you're not actually doing anything. It was clear that he wanted to talk to me and he was just waiting for me to be done talking to the other people. He asked for my Snapchat, and so I ended up adding him to this group chat that we had all started together. And it was kind of funny because it was at that point that he saw my phone lock screen. He asked me about it, and to be kind of sassy, I was like, oh yeah, that's my really hot boyfriend. And everyone in the circle was like, ooh, ah. I was getting certain vibes from Craig. And so from the beginning, I just made it really clear that I did have a boyfriend at the time. I don't know about you, but if somebody's, I don't know, just kind of into you and they want to be like, see like what the vibe is with you, it's easy to tell. And so anyway, the next couple of days, the conversations between him and I were on text. It was basically just him asking me about spiritual concepts because he had come from a different religious background, and so now he identified more as spiritual, and he was trying to kind of see and feel out what he wanted to believe within himself moving forward. And I don't know, as we kept talking, he was just a little immature, a little cocky, and again, I kept getting that kind of weird, awkward, like trying to be sneaky, flirtatious vibe. And so I did that thing where I would casually bring up my boyfriend in literally any way possible throughout the conversation. Like, oh, this reminds me of the time that my boyfriend blah, blah, blah. Or like, oh, my boyfriend totally likes this one thing. Or like, you know what I mean? It was just stupid. And so then finally it happened. He brought it up. Literally one day, just randomly, he was like, oh yeah, not gonna lie, I was gonna ask you out, but... And then he proceeds to ask, I'm not even kidding, he's like, but because you're not available, are any of your friends single? And I was like, I knew that my roommate at the time was single, and so only after I talked to her about it, because basically I told her about the conversation, and I knew that they kind of had some stuff in common, so I proposed the idea to her. I was like, well, you know, would you maybe be interested in this guy? And she's like, yeah. So he was very eager, and at that point, oh. And so at that point, he was very eager, and he literally asked if we were both free the next day. We're getting to the love spell stuff soon, I promise. This is just like the preface setup of like what happened and like what led to that. And so anyway, he had told me that he literally had the whole day free, and he actually said that he preferred to see us earlier in the day so that we had more time. And this is so stupid. This is where his character really became clear to me, because almost immediately after we met up with him, I introduced them to, he asked what the agenda was because, oh, I don't know, like I think I only have maybe an hour or two to hang out. My theory is that maybe, I don't know, my roommate wasn't his type, but they didn't even talk. And so we ended up going to some local walking trails just down the street from where we live, because we lived in the same on-campus apartment complex. And so in the beginning, I was the one kind of leading the conversation, and I was trying to have it just be very generalized so that everybody could participate. Like, oh, Halloween's coming up and school stuff and, you know, stuff like that. And what's so annoying is that he was literally not engaged at all. He was barely saying anything. I was trying so hard to kind of just, I don't know, start something, lead something. But as we were walking, finally when he started speaking, he started aiming the conversations at me, and he would specifically call me out. He'd specifically say, so Olivia, what do you think of blah blah blah, or oh, Olivia, blah 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 blah. And he was also walking very close to me, so there were various points where if there was a biker or someone else walking or whatever, I tried to shuffle us around in a discreet way so that he was standing closer to my roommate, because this was a setup for them. I mean, it was honestly super obvious that he was almost trying to exclude my roommate altogether. And then that was when he started talking about himself a lot. He got into this rant about, and I don't understand why, he got into this rant about his favorite anime, and I feel like I mean, I watch anime. I'm not like trying to like stereotype or like say anything like that. Like, let me explain. I feel like there's a line between liking something and obsessing over something, no matter what it is. And so he did that thing where he kept relating parts of the anime to his life. And I mean, relating to something, you know, that could bring you healing and comfort. That's not that weird of a thing. But he made it weird and extreme because at the end of that whole explanation, I quote, he literally said,
"So I'm ultimately a perfect being."
What?
And so building off of that, it became very clear to me that he also had a god complex. I don't know, like talking about the anime, talking about himself and like his goals and oh, it's so cool. I don't know. It was just like, dude, what are you saying right now? And so again, to like put so much, I don't know, air up his own, what is that phrase? Blowing smoke up his own ass, I guess. He, again, aiming the conversation at me, he's like, "So Olivia, what do you think the meaning of life is?" He literally said that. This dude, I don't understand the conversations, the topics, the way that it... So I gave him my honest spiritual answer about how we have multiple lifetimes to lead a specific mission in each one. I just gave a short explanation of that, what I believe. And then in such a dramatic voice, I'm not even kidding, I don't know why his tone was like this in this moment, but he literally said, "Well, I believe that life is completely meaningless. However, the relationships that you form with others are what give it meaning." I literally told my dad about this, and he goes,
"Did he find that on a poster?"
and I'm like, probably. And so we're getting towards the end of the walk, and I was just so annoyed. I was just so done at this point. I mean, my roommate literally barely got a word in. There were a lot of weird, awkward moments because, like I said, he would either aim all of the conversation directly at me or he would talk about himself. And this dude, I swear, was trying to pull anything to like engage with me. And so this is such a random thing that I remember from this, but he literally goes, "Oh, Olivia, did you dye your hair? I swear that during the philosophy meeting it was darker. It looks lighter today." And so because I was so done, I literally told him the truth. I was like, "Oh, it was greasy that day." Because when your hair is like, I mean, whether you have long or short hair, like, you know, like, I don't know, it looks different when it's gotta be washed. And the color, I don't know. Like, dude, that's so random. And so anyway, I went to the next couple, maybe one or two philosophy club meetings. And what's so weird is that I started feeling very solid, full body vibrations. And trying to interpret it later, I was like, well, what did we talk about? Like, did they align with or react to or relate to particular topics or things or concepts that we had brought up in the club? And so eventually I realized, no, they were all super random. There was no correlation, there were no themes. The only thing that was consistent about these experiences was that they always happened when Craig was at the meeting. And he always sat close to me too. But I thought I was crazy until this is where it starts, guys. It was over a stretch of a couple days where I started feeling so strange. And so the first thing, okay, I had woken up with this weird mark on my rib cage. They weren't bedsheet marks. It wasn't a scab. It wasn't a scratch. It wasn't some weird small thing that I could have done like to myself in the night on accident, but it wasn't demonic either. So like, don't get freaked out. But I don't know, it almost looked like a stamp or like a print or something. And they were just like these little lines, not like scratch marks, but they were just these like thin, elongated, like lines that kind of like curved a little bit. This guy was just so annoying. I was just so turned off by him as a person in general, and I just didn't like the way he was acting. But all of a sudden, I'm telling you, I could not stop thinking about him. I went from being totally annoyed and dismissive and just him not being on my mind at all, me just going through my day like normal, whatever, to me literally, it was so weird. My chest was really tight. I felt sick. It was just this weird sense of anxiety, and I had a very poor appetite too. Very low productivity. I could tell that something was very off. It was just so weird to me as it started happening because I was very devoted to my boyfriend at the time. I loved him. We had plans. It was a very serious relationship. And so I was just super confused as to why all of a sudden I was physically feeling all these things and how I was mentally thinking those things and having those thoughts. Another super weird symptom that I experienced was that there was this song that I was choreographing a dance to, and it's kind of about love, I guess. And I liked it, and I was trying to develop the moves, and so I was listening to it a decent amount of time. But when I tell you, I literally had this song on repeat, and I couldn't stop smiling while listening to it once all that other weirdness fell over me. I mean it. It was the weirdest thing. And I mean, songs carry frequency, so it was almost as if it was holding me in this weird trance state. I was all giggly and smiley and just, yeah, so over the top with it. And so the last super weird thing was that all of a sudden I was happy and excited when he would text me, even though a mere few days before I was avoiding responding to him because I was annoyed. And so from there, I told my best friend at the time what was happening. She was very spiritual, and this is actually the person that I had started my spiritual journey with. She told me that she had an extremely similar experience when she was put under a love spell. And so she was the one who had suggested and had guessed that I might be under one. She specifically mentioned the mark, the feeling in her chest, the thoughts, etc., those symptoms in her story. She made some suggestions as to how I could move forward, and she was very helpful. I genuinely didn't know, and I still don't know whether or not it was intentional for him to put that energy on me. But it's crazy because once I became aware of it, it became clear to me that he kind of clouded my aura much more than I realized. And I guess I was too distracted to notice that I wasn't getting as many messages and divine connection signs, things that I experience every day from my guides. And then all of a sudden they started coming in super clearly again. And so I was like, what the hell? It was affecting me in all these ways. And so, okay, here's where it gets even more wild though. In the meantime, I noticed that Craig was coming on to a really good friend I had made in the philosophy club. We'll call her Julie. And so I took it upon myself to reach out to her and say that he was bad news. I ended up telling her everything that was going on because she had expressed massive interest in the craft and in Wicca. We were on the phone for a bit as I was telling her all this, and it was just so much to take in, and it was just so crazy to the point where she invited me over. Her other friend was over at her place that night too. We'll call her Brittany. And so the three of us all hung out and became really close. And so as I was telling them everything, we were trying to kind of figure it out. Julie ended up texting Craig to call him out. And of course, he didn't know what we were talking about. And so my theory is that since I had found out for him because he wanted to know that he was an older soul, he accidentally cast the spell from perhaps thinking of me while performing certain
self-gratification
things. And without getting into it too much, there's a lot of power in sexual energy. So you need to be super careful if you're someone who's even remotely spiritually woke. You could unintentionally aim some seriously strong energy at someone. And so I ended up doing a cleansing ritual on myself. It had a couple of different phases, but basically I think first I did this guided healing meditation. I said some incantations for the release as well, paired with some crystal magic, basically just totally dismissing and dissolving the hold that the spell had on me. I cleansed my room and my space too, and of course all of this was done with the windows open. It worked, and guess what? All those symptoms went away. I knew that it was something else. I knew that it was, in fact, energy that was put onto me. And so obviously I blocked Craig, and there was a time where I actually stopped showing up to the philosophy club, especially while I was doing the whole cleansing process thing, just to put as much distance between us as possible and to cut off any energetic influence. But he didn't show up the whole rest of the semester. And honestly, looking back, my daily protection ritual back then was absolute garbage. And so that's the reason why what he was aiming at me was able to come through in the way that it did. And so anyway, that was a doozy. That is it for today's video. If you liked it, found it fun, cool, maybe entertaining, please go ahead and give it a like. If something similar happened to you, maybe leave a comment down below. Wishing you a great rest of your day, and I'll see you soon.